Are there aspects to your day that you feel as if you're just, checking the box? Do you ever strive to reach out of your comfort zone, become uncomfortable, and level up? Privileged to be your host, this is Jason Wabick. Now, let's uncheck the box. Good day to everybody out there. My name is Jason Wabick, host of the Uncheck the Box podcast, and very privileged to be here. You know, this is an idea that I had, and as I'm recording this, it's January 1st, 2021, and it was just a goal of mine. You know, I'm going to see where this goes. I'm going to be completely transparent with you when I say I guess there's a degree of uncomfortableness to what I'm doing, but you know what? I'm pushing myself through. I guess I kind of practicing what I preach, and let's see where this goes. So, you know, a lot of my current friends will join me in this journey, and along that way, I'll probably meet some new friends. So, much appreciation for all of you out there and any future feedback. But, I'm excited. This is something I've been wanting to do, and I figured I'd push myself and challenge myself. Like I said, throw myself into the unknown, into being uncomfortable, and let's see where it goes. If nothing more, you know, continuing to grow myself and to get better and to learn. So a little bit about me. I'm a prospecting coach with an automotive company up in Buffalo, New York. Been with this company for 18 years. And currently work with sales professionals and coaching them and training them as in the process of basically talking to strangers, right? Picking up those phones and calling people they don't know, and sparking up educational conversations. And certainly isn't easy, you know, and maybe we'll get more into that in future episodes, but definitely felt led to start this podcast, you know, with finding that there is a lot of times in our day that we find ourselves being uncomfortable. And it's about pushing through that feeling, right? And, you know, so I guess episode 1, season 1 is perfect to start with that word uncomfortable. You know, and what does it mean, and why should we embrace this being uncomfortable? I mean, it doesn't sound too good, right? Why is that a good thing? I mean, it doesn't sound great. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I mean, if we look at the definitions, you know, we start with the definition of comfortable, you know, affording or enjoying contentment, having security. Sounds good, right? Sounds good. And then the definition of uncomfortable: causing discomfort, distress, painful, irritating, in a state of discomfort, uneasiness, stress, or pain. Ugh, it doesn't sound too great now, does it? But you know, my friends, in life, I think we all know that there's certain times being uncomfortable is not a bad thing. Let's look at a couple of them. And you'll get to know me over the next months, years, however long this is. But, you know, I'm a big analogy guy. I feel like analogies make any type of topic applicable. You know, it makes it applicable to our everyday. And a good applicable analogy for uncomfortableness would be simply exercising. You know, exercising, it's certainly not easy, especially when we're getting started out, right? And I can tell you, there is definitely an element of pain. You know, it's definitely painful. It's painful for a couple days after you start working out, right? But working out and exercising, that is, I think, the epitome of uncomfortableness. I mean, we're putting ourselves through irritation, through discomfort, through pain, through strain, or putting our bodies through stress, right? Because we know the end result is going to be good, right? So I think that's a perfect example of a scenario that we can apply every uncomfortableness each and every single day. You know, if we're just comfortable, you know, when it comes to working out, I'm just, you know what, I'm in bed. It feels good right now. I'm going to hit the snooze button, a few more minutes of sleep, and because I'm good. I'm comfortable, right? It's probably not what we should be doing, right? So, yes, there is an element of uncomfortableness that we can apply to a handful of things in our life. So the purpose of this first podcast was to really focus on that. And I wanted everybody out there to at least have 3 takeaways. 3 takeaways, again, things that you can apply. It's the beginning of January. It's a new year, and we all have goals and resolutions and things that we want to work on. So this is perfect. Perfect time to start a podcast. Perfect topic to start out a new year. So 3 takeaways. Takeaway number 1. My friends, it boils down to doing the things that we just don't like to do. You know, we talked about working out, right? And, you know, I think especially getting started in an exercise routine, you know, because of the pain and the discomfort, I think we don't like doing that, right? It becomes easier over time. We'll talk about that, but it comes down to doing the things that we don't like to do. And single-handedly, the things that we don't like to do probably are the things we should be doing. You know, I work with, again, sales professionals every day and, you know, making phone calls, prospecting phone calls. You know, I don't know how many people actually really like doing it, but we'll come up with reasons why not to do it because we don't like to do it. But deep down, we know just because we don't like to do it, it's probably the thing we should be doing, right? So we have to keep a couple things in mind. We have to be committed. We have to have a degree of discipline and perseverance and persistence. But we also have to make sure that we add an element of routine into our day. You see, my friends, it comes down to that commitment and that persistence. But if we don't have that routine that's repeatable day in and day out, it's not going to stick. And then over time, what's uncomfortable today starts to become more comfortable. Now, I don't want to say it becomes completely comfortable, okay? But it becomes more tolerable, becomes more comfortable. What's perceived to be very hard and difficult at the start does become easier over time. And then it adds, insert confidence, right? You become more confident in executing that thing. And then what did you just do? Instead of just checking the box every single day, you uncheck the box, and now you're learning and growing. Make sense? It's not easy to start out, but over time, it does get easier. And as it gets easier, your execution in that activity becomes on point. You start to level up, and your confidence goes up. Takeaway number 2, my friends, we have to be aware that failing and making mistakes is actually a good thing. We cannot fear failure. We can't be afraid of making mistakes. After all, that's how we learn and grow. Is it not true? Analogy. You know, we all probably don't remember what it was like to learn how to ride a bike. But we could probably imagine back then when the training wheels were taken off, we got on that bike, what probably happened? We probably fell. And what did we do? We probably got back up. We started riding again a little bit, probably got a little bit further, and then we fell again. You know, and in that process, there was probably a degree of pain, probably bumps and bruises and scrapes, right? It was definitely uncomfortable, was not easy. But wasn't that the definition of being uncomfortable? But what did we keep doing? We kept persevering. And we eventually learned how to ride that bike. You know, they say that kids have no fear, right? But where did we, as we get older and wiser, why did we forget about that? Why did we all of a sudden despise failure and fear failure and making mistakes? You see, my friends, it's all about embracing being uncomfortable. And if we're going to embrace being uncomfortable, we have to be okay with failure, rejection, making mistakes. There's this book by Dr. Carol Dweck. A lot of you out there probably have read it. It's called Mindset. And talks the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And maybe that's for another episode. But having a growth mindset, implying growing, right, is just that. It's being okay with failing. It's about learning from our mistakes, because we know, instead of saying to ourselves, oh, that didn't feel so good, I'm good, I'm all good, we're saying, you know what? I'm glad I had that experience because I'm going to do it differently next time. And when I do it differently next time, I'm going to have a better outcome because I went through this failure process. So again, my friends, be okay with failing and making mistakes, right? It's part of life. That's how we grow. If we're failing to put ourselves out there and take risks, we're stunting our growth. That's basically what it is. We're depriving ourselves of tapping into our full potential. Again, being comfortable, it's not a bad thing. It's holding us back. And the point of this podcast is obviously to push ourselves beyond what we think we can achieve. We come to find out when we start to achieve it that we could have done it all along. Takeaway number 3 is not listening to that inner voice, otherwise known as the ego. We all have one, and ego's not a bad thing. The ego's that inner voice in there that we just have to know how to channel it, right? We start out by making sure that we don't take things personally. You know, that ego wants to be in control, and so oftentimes it takes over our thoughts and gives us a false sense of what's actually happening out there, right? But it's about channeling that. The ego loves being right. Okay? The ego loves being right. It does serve a purpose, you know, it makes sure that we stay in check, but it wants to keep us comfortable. It wants to protect us, watch out for this, be very careful, don't go there. You're going to be a little bit uncomfortable, watch out. It does serve a purpose. But when the ego is dominant, we become out of alignment with our true self. And when we let the ego take control, our true self isn't. But when we can learn to listen to that ego, right? And know deep down what we want. And if what we want is through a process of uncomfortableness, we can tell that inner voice, listen, I know you want to hold me back, but I got this. I'm good. And at that point, the true self rises above. It's about keeping it in check. There's a quote by author and teacher Eckhart Tolle, and it says, the moment you become aware of the ego in you, it is strictly no longer the ego, but just an old conditioned mind pattern. Ego and awareness cannot coexist. It's all about being aware, right? And they can't coexist. And if you're aware of the ego, then at that point, it just becomes an old thought pattern. No longer has full control. Because you're aware of the situation, you take control. And at that point, you embrace the uncomfortable. You venture into the uncomfortable. Why? Because your true self said so. Because your true self says at the other side of this is a lot of good. On the other side of this is a lot of growth. And I'm going to stand committed to this because I know when it's all said and done, I'm going to be a better version of me. So no, I don't want to be comfortable, inner voice, right? It's about pushing yourself. But one of the things you have to do is you have to control that inner voice. It's going to want to hold you back, my friends. It's going to want to hold you back. But you got to rise above it. That's how you level up. So again, 3 takeaways. Do things you know you don't like to do, but you probably should be doing. Don't be afraid of failing along the way and making mistakes because growth is on the other side. And number 3, that inner voice, that inner ego is going to want to hold you back, and it's about rising above it. It's about channeling that inner voice, tapping into your true self, being aware, and embracing the uncomfortable. My friends, it'll be a fun journey. Like I said, it'll be a fun journey. I'm sure I'll make mistakes along the way. I'm okay with that, obviously, but it'll definitely be fun. If you want to get a hold of me, you can email me directly at uncheckthebox@yahoo.com. I'm sure I'll venture out there in social media space over the ensuing months, but for now, feel free, if you stumbled upon my podcast, to have some feedback, ideas for future episodes, constructive criticism, I'm open. So again, that's uncheckthebox@yahoo.com. Feel free to let me know. And again, I thank you for joining me today, and I wish you all a tremendous and very prosperous 2021.